Breaking today. Look out, Lauren Sanchez. Meghan Markle is coming for your man. It was only a matter of time, wasn't it, that the desperate Duchess of Delusion went for the Amazon boss, Jeff Bezos. And of course, it's for professional reasons, as Royally Sage pointed out from the hardcore mouthpiece, Charlotte Griffiths. So this is an admission that Netflix did fire her. It's a little bit more complicated than that. We'll get to it in just one moment. But as according to Taz added, she won't get past Lauren, especially after their ridiculous behavior overshadowing Kris Jenner's birthday party. So we're going to get the best analysis in town as we team up with Brittany from the Royal News Network in just one moment. But first, let me take you through this new reporting from Charlotte Griffiths over the weekend, who writes that canny Meghan Markle is professionally wooing Amazon top boss Jeff Bezos. Yes, I'm sure it's completely professional, just like everything else Meghan Markle has done. Not. She writes, Netflix bosses are said to have noted that the Duchess of Sussex appears to be professionally wooing Bezos. Sources across Hollywood say there has been much chatter at the streaming giant and beyond about the decision Meghan has made to return to the screen in the upcoming Amazon MGM studio film Close Personal Friends. She doesn't have any of those, where she will take on a cameo role as herself. Some have claimed Meghan, who recently salvaged a first look deal with Netflix after her $100 million 5-year deal came to an end, is simply being a canny businesswoman in siding with Bezos rather than Netflix to take on the acting job 8 years after leaving the cast of legal drama Suits, where she became engaged to Prince Harry. But another source has pointed out that Bezos is one of the few people with enough money to bankroll any future projects both on and off screen that Meghan and Harry might like to work on. The source from rival studio Disney told the Mail on Sunday, the Sussexes have been the subject of much chatter this week. People find it curious that Meghan seems to be professionally wooing Bezos, but to be brutally frank, who can blame her? He has all the money in the world and is one of the few people who can afford to bankroll any future projects of hers. A source at William Morris Endeavour, Hollywood's biggest talent agency which represents Meghan, told the newspaper, the Duchess is a smart businesswoman and very much in control of her career and where she sees it going. Of course, people are talking about her connection to Jeff Bezos and the fact she's chosen to star in an Amazon film, but there are very few big players in town, and she has two of them, Netflix and Amazon. She's a canny businesswoman. Underestimate her at your peril. But last night, a source close to Netflix said everyone in Hollywood is talking about Meghan making her return to acting in an Amazon film rather than a Netflix project. It's a bit like when Meghan and Harry sat down with Oprah Winfrey to give their first big interview post-Megxit. People all over town are wondering why they didn't come to Netflix. Of course, Netflix will never say anything remotely critical about them publicly, but let's just say this has been noted. Because, of course, Netflix remains a partner in Was Never, which has just released its first holiday-themed collection. The source added people have been critical of the 5-year deal, but Netflix was happy with the documentary series, which was a huge hit. That's why they signed a first look deal with the Sussexes once the original deal came to an end. Both of them are perfectly entitled to do other projects with other studios. Ted Sarandos doesn't care, he adores her, but others have remarked on it. Everyone is talking about why Meghan has chosen Jeff Bezos. He's a billionaire, dummy. So, Brittany from the Royal News Network joins me now. And Brittany, what do you make of this sort of very blatant attempt by Meghan Markle to now cozy up with one of the world's richest men and Jeff Bezos?
Well, I don't think anybody would consider it a big surprise. Meghan is always searching for people who can fund her lifestyle, fund her projects, what have you. But it is an indication somewhat that things aren't going well behind the scenes, despite the source from WME that kept saying, oh, Meghan is a great businesswoman. Ignore her at your own peril. She is up a creek without a paddle in so many ways, as ever, is stalling for sure. The holiday collection doesn't seem to be moving very well. Meghan is horrible at promoting it. And a bit part on an Amazon movie is not really much to hang your hat on at this point. Yes, she's dipping her toe back in the acting waters, but we just don't see many other roles on the horizon. And Meghan's Achilles heel in this area has always been is that she's a horrible actress. So I don't think her going back into acting is probably going to be all that successful. I think it's actually why she didn't go to back to acting in the first place is that she knew she wasn't really good at it and the roles had dried up before she met Harry. And so she knew she was slowly going to be on her way out anyways. It's why she was looking for a wealthy man. And as her time right now in Hollywood with Harry is sort of starting to dry up as well, she's looking to catch a bigger fish, perhaps. But I would imagine Jeff Bezos is very, very happy with Lauren Sanchez. I don't think he's going to give Meghan the time of day. And she doesn't really even have many successes to hang her hat on and promote within the industry at this point. They had one single success, a series about themselves and the royal family. That's it. I think Hollywood is looking elsewhere. I don't think they're all that engaged and interested in Harry and Meghan. Yes, they generate headlines, but as we've seen in the last couple of weeks, they're almost always bad, always toxic, and always an absolute disaster.
Indeed, they are. But I think it is correct to point out, isn't it, Brittany, that, Lauren Sanchez ain't no fool. She ain't no fool.
Mm-hmm.
She's got a reading here of Ms. Markle. A very quick but personal message from me to you to let you know that the best way you can support Dan Wootton Outspoken is to subscribe to my Substack at www.outspoken.live. Substack is a free speech platform that protects me from big tech cancellation and lawfare. Paid annual or monthly subscribers get an extra hour of content with the Royal Uncancelled After Show available every weekday with no advertising whatsoever. You can also message me direct on there. That's www.outspoken.live.
Oh, yes. Lauren probably is in some ways is cut from a similar cloth in that Lauren went after the money and she got the money, but she sort of revels in it. I think Bethany Frankel caught it best is like they are somewhat similar, but Lauren sort of owns her excess and her interests and everything like that. Whereas Meghan tries to play all fields and ends up just looking like an absolute hot mess. And so I think when it comes to this friction, Lauren, of course, will clock Meghan. And I think a lot of people in the industry totally see through Meghan Markle as well. As we've seen throughout Meghan's time in the royal family, pretty much nobody was fooled by her except for Harry. They all knew she was sketchy. They all knew that she didn't really have the right intentions in this relationship. And they tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, and it just definitely for sure did not work out. But you can't, I don't think, fault the royal family in some ways for trying to, let's say, see if there was something good there. Obviously, there wasn't. And I think a lot of Hollywood sees through her as well. They're just keeping her around just in case of the divorce or more royal drama that they can capitalize on. This is an industry that is run mostly by money. And so that's what they're chasing is the potential money Harry and Meghan and the drama they generate can develop into rather than them as individual talents. And so Lauren and Jeff, I'm sure, have met Harry and Meghan, but they weren't invited to the wedding, were they? So I don't think they're going to be that close.
Yeah, indeed. And remember, Lauren Sanchez is good friends with Bethany Frankel from the Real Housewives of New York, who has Meghan absolutely down and has done for a long time. We learned over the weekend that it was because of her previous relationship with Trevor Engelson, Meghan's ex-husband. So I have a feeling Lauren Sanchez is going to be well and truly briefed on that. But look, it's fascinating, Brittany, that even a week on, this Kardashian Photogate drama shows no sign of letting up. And one of the theories is that the reason behind the storm was because the pictures of the pair inside of the event were just so horrendous. And there was more evidence of that over the weekend. Look at this from Maria Montessori, Brittany, who discovered that there was this picture in the background of Meghan clicking her fingers for service. And as Princess Carparkle said, Meghan Markle obviously realized too late she was in someone else's shot and looks dumb as hell. Harry isn't much better. She has a knack for finding the camera no matter what. But I mean, these pictures did not look good. And a picture of her clicking her finger demanding service clearly is a really bad look for this woman.
It is, and all the pictures I thought were actually rather unflattering of them that definitely Kris Jenner chose. I don't think they made many friends at that event. They definitely treated it like they did Meghan's wedding as a networking opportunity. And so they were definitely trying to wheel and deal there, but I just don't think it went over very well. They have a very, very dismal track record. And seeing the pictures that did come out, they just weren't all that flattering to the couple. And I think that's because they just didn't really endear themselves to anyone there. And Harry and Meghan's Achilles heel, of course, in every situation is that, yes, they generate headlines, but it doesn't ever convert for them and the people they associate heavily with into cash most of the times. And that's what these people are mostly searching for. They're searching for successes, they want capital and these sorts of things. And Harry and Meghan are just the absolute antithesis of that. And I think they just prove how inadequate they are in that community. But of course, again, everybody sort of keeps them around just in case something, let's say, plays out to everyone's benefit. Other than that, they're sort of willing to let Harry and Meghan just sort of hang around, but they're not, again, really engaging with them all that much.
But Brittany, from the Times of London over the
Mhm.
weekend, another accusation of lying. I mean, this is now just becoming so constant and so consistent. It is disastrous for the Sussexes' reputation. Of course, I know that they lie, but the fact that they lied about the
Mm.
consent form at the Kardashian event, and now it's emerged they also lied about the fact that they briefed Buckingham Palace, both King Charles and Prince William, about Harry's visit to Toronto. And this was revealed in quite a soft feature in the Times by Kate Mancy under the headline Prince Harry claims Palace was briefed on trip to Toronto. Recollections continue to vary on the courtesy warning before the Duke met with the King and Queen's regiments in Canada. She writes, the Duke's office added that the palace had been informed in advance as a courtesy. However, it appears no one at the palace received the memo, leading to questions as to whether it was ever sent. One source said it was a bit rum to claim the palace had been informed when nobody at either Buckingham Palace or Kensington Palace appeared to have received any advance notice of the trip before it was released to the press. When the Duke's office was asked when they gave the courtesy warning and to whom, there came no reply. So this is just typical, isn't it? Just like with the consent form. And at some point, doesn't the mainstream media, the regime media, the royal rota have to wake up to the fact that you cannot trust a word that comes out of Harry and Meghan's office? I mean,
I
come
mean,
on, we've had 6 years of these lies.
we have, and it really is shocking, Dan, that Harry and Meghan seem to think that they can lie with impunity, that nobody will ever call them out. And oftentimes they're silly lies, like saying, "Yes, we did give a courtesy noting notice to the palace." And then they're like, "Well, show us it. Who did you send it to, when, what have you?" And they had nothing. And it's like, "Well, why even say it?" Same thing with the note saying, "No, we didn't give consent to our pictures being taken." And then the Kardashians are like, "There was no consent because this was supposed to be a friends and family party only." And so you have the Kardashians hitting out on them. But what actually is even more critical, I think, in the Times piece is that in it, it sort of kind of implies that Harry believes that if he gives a warning to the palace or tells the palace he's going to do something like go to Canada and meet with these regiments, that somehow he is getting their approval or consent for these or their endorsement in some ways. And I think that is particularly concerning because Harry, yes, is free in some ways to do what he wants, but that in no means reflects the fact that he's doing it on behalf of the palace or his father in any stretch of the imagination. And this goes back again to this idea that Harry and Meghan are still trying to do the half in, half out thing. And the palace is just sort of letting this happen. And it's, again, an example of why the titles need to be pulled, why this firm separation needs to be had, because this couple is not only continuing to lie to the press, but they're also seeming to think in some ways that they're acting on behalf of His Majesty, and they're not. And that needs to be firmly told to the world because otherwise, I think Harry and Meghan use that ambiguity to their own benefit.
Absolutely. But Brittany, as we have both been saying for a long time, and as you re-emphasized over the weekend, this is why Charles has to act. Here's your post on this. So Prince Harry's team claims they sent notice to the palace about his trip to Canada but can't provide proof. It also appears that by informing the family, Harry believes that conveys their support of his trip. Another reason why to pull the titles. Harry is deluded and using the barest of communications to try and make others believe he comes with the blessing of his father when he doesn't. This is a lie by omission, and this type of rogue activity must be dealt with. And of course, you're so right. This matters. And while they keep the titles, this type of malarkey, this type of nonsense is going to keep on going on. And at some point, Brittany, the embarrassment to the British royal family will be extreme. They have been warned. But first, as we get older, you notice it. After a cold, a hard workout, even a long week, recovery just isn't as quick as it used to be, right? That bounce back factor matters. And it turns out the secret isn't luck, it's stem cells, your body's built-in repair crew. With age, that system slows down. Fewer cells, weaker signals, slower recovery. That's exactly why Qualia created Qualia Stem Cell. Think of it this way. Your cells are powerful. Qualia Stem Cell helps keep them that way. It's crafted with nature's heavy lifters, sea buckthorn, royal jelly, and more to support your body's natural repair system so you can keep moving, healing, and thriving. You don't have to accept slowing down. This is about supporting better aging by reactivating the systems that help you bounce back. And it's refreshingly simple. You take it just 4 days a month. So if you've ever felt like your body just doesn't bounce back like it used to, whether it's after a tough workout, getting sick, or just the wear and tear of life, this is for you. Qualia Stem Cell was designed to support your body's natural repair systems, helping you heal, recover, and keep going strong. And right now, you can try it for up to 50% off at qualialife.com/Dan. And here's a bonus. Use the code Dan for an additional 15% off your order. So that's QUALIA life.com/Dan. Your body's built to repair itself. Qualia just helps it do it that better. And a big thanks, by the way, to Qualia for sponsoring this episode of Outspoken. But now, back to the show.
They have. And again, we have the example of Andrew and Sarah just recently to prove that if you let this stuff go on too long, you're going to hit a point where the entire institution, why it exists, its role within the United Kingdom itself is going to be called into question. And this is why these things must be dealt with, sometimes in the harshest of manners. Yes, we all understand that Harry is Charles's son, and this is going to be exceptionally difficult. But Charles has another son and 3 other grandchildren and an extended family to think about on the other side, who are all sort of following the, let's say, the legalese of the monarchy, representing the British people, doing these tours on his behalf. And then you have his son over there in the United States going to Kardashian parties and going up to Canada and thinking somehow that he's some sort of like royal representative in Canada. And it's like, no. Charles has to act decisively here. He cannot leave this to William. And yes, Harry will be upset, but this is a test for Charles. He waited too long to do it to Andrew. And he really just does need to address it with Harry and Meghan here, because Harry lives in the land of delusion. Somehow he thinks he can be all things and that the royal family is, behind him, or the British people are. Like, he said these sort of things. And so he's just going to continue to act as he sees fit. And that's not to the benefit of Charles, William, George, the British monarchy, the British people, and Charles has to pull the titles. It was easy with Andrew, extend it to Harry too.
Totally, you can do it. Super easy. There's no reason for them to keep those titles now. The line of succession, that's another thing. But the titles, they do not need them. Obviously, the line of succession, that's a separate conversation, and we'll have that separately, and we have had that separately. But look, Kennedy from the Fox News Network has been reporting some exclusive information about what went on at that Kardashian party in a new column for the Daily Mail, where she writes, "My Montecito mole tells me why Meghan threw a fit after Kris Jenner's birthday party." She reveals from this source, and this source, Brittany, she has, used before. It's someone very close to her in Montecito who knows what goes on with Meghan. And this source says, Meghan is so particular about curating her image and has approval over every photo that goes out. She saw those photos and realized how bad she looked compared to every other woman at the party, and obviously threw a fit. Needless to say, Kim K and crew are reportedly furious that these royal pains created a whole bunch of unnecessary drama overshadowing an event that should have been a celebration of Jenner's life and surgical triumphs. At this point, Harry and Meghan seem to be running out of A-listers to offend. I'd advise them to check if any memberships have opened up at Trump International in West Palm, but if they think the Kardashians are intimidating, they'll totally freak out over Mar-a-Lago face. So she threw a fit, Brittany, and it was because she was not happy with the pictures, and that is from Kennedy's source in Montecito.
I mean, I think we can all believe that, Dan. The photos were not flattering, especially the one. It made her look a lot heavier than we know that she is. It was just the angle and the style of dress, but that was the style of dress Meghan Markle chose. She chose to dress that way. There were probably numerous other dresses that she could have chosen that were much more flattering. But Meghan's problem is, and we see it reflected there in Kennedy's article, that Meghan can't take advice. She can't take advice, she can't take feedback, and she ends up sort of in a mess because people can be there to tell you, "Hey, that doesn't look super good. Maybe do something different." But Meghan thinks she's always right, and she has this obsessive need to control every single aspect about her public identity, basically. And unfortunately, the reality is that if you are a public figure, even on the micro scale or the macro scale, there are things you just cannot control, and that's just sort of life. And I think Meghan's great frustration sort of in her royal and post-royal life is that she didn't have the meticulous control she did when nobody cared who she was on Suits. And so she's constantly battling that desire and constantly failing. And this is why they've stepped from one mess into another. I think she is so obsessed with how the image is. Her and Harry both have to wear the Dodgers hats. Not just her, both of them had to. And it was part of the costume. And of course, that backfired on them. And so if they could just take advice and feedback, and if Meghan could let go of the aspects, very much like the Kardashians have, where you just can't control everything and you just go with it. I think Meghan would be much more successful than she is, but she is her own worst enemy. She self-sabotages constantly. And again, we see this play out almost endlessly at this point. It's just incredible that they haven't learned seemingly anything over the last 5, 7, 8 years.
Neither has the British Bashing Corporation. Brittany, that's my nickname for the UK's state broadcaster, not only being sued for $1 billion by the US President Donald Trump, egregiously refusing to show respect to Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Remember this from last week during remembrance ceremonies.
And take you to the Arboretum in Staffordshire, as we said there. Kate Middleton attending that ceremony. Let's have a listen in.
Well, a reluctant, grovelling apology has now been issued, Brittany, in the past few hours from the BBC, which reads, "We received complaints from people unhappy that we didn't use the Princess of Wales' correct title during our coverage of Armistice Day. During our coverage of memorials to commemorate Armistice Day, we mistakenly referred to Catherine, Princess of Wales, as Kate Middleton. These were errors during hours of live broadcasting, for which we apologise. Throughout our Armistice Day coverage more broadly, we referred to Catherine by her correct title." But I'm sorry, Brittany, to try and claim that this is a mistake is total baloney.
It is pretty shocking, I think, especially because it was like a broadcast, they should know better. I understand why they do it somewhat, using her maiden name in the titles of articles. It's for search engine reasons, algorithms, these sorts of things. That's just the more well-known name. But on a live broadcast, most people tend to try to use the correct title because you're not dealing with sort of some of the same kind of stipulations that you are in an article. So it's just, again, reflects sort of the lack of education, you could say, within the BBC when it comes to their royals, and they're supposed to represent their state television. Basically, they're supposed to represent and know the correct titles for members of the British royal family. It's sort of maybe understandable if an American broadcast does that, but the Times of London, the Telegraph always use the correct titles. It was sort of shocking that the BBC didn't. Again, I understand some of it when it comes to titles, let's say in online pieces, written online pieces, but it is really unmistakable. And obviously, they got a huge amount of complaints about it and have decided to go, yeah, we apologize. But it's like, at this point, though, they should know better, especially for such a sacred day. They really should be using the correct titles for all the members of the family.
Totally, but it's just the downfall of the BBC represented in so many ways. Shocking new report over the weekend, Brittany, from Andrew Lowney, the man behind Entitled, the book that in many regards did end up bringing down Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly known as Prince Andrew. His new world exclusive reports that Jeffrey Epstein was actually plotting to assassinate both Andrew and Fergie. I just want to take you through this reporting, Brittany, from Andrew Lowney, who has obviously been doing some brilliant work, but this is a very shocking one. He writes, a person deeply connected to sociopath Jeffrey Epstein told the Lowney report that Epstein harbored homicidal thoughts weeks before he was found dead. He devised a detailed plan to take out Prince Andrew and Fergie, the source said. He was worried that they would fold and spill damaging information about him. He felt strongly that both Andrew and Fergie had breached his trust and were planning to leak key information about him in an attempt to save their own skins. Jeffrey developed a concrete plan to eliminate both of them and had been in talks with a notorious UK sniper for hire. If Jeffrey hadn't died, Andrew and Fergie would have been murdered. They knew too much about his sex trafficking ring. The source elaborated on what triggered Epstein's homicidal thoughts. He said Epstein became convinced the British monarchy was planning to take him out via extrajudicial killing. Jeffrey was tipped off by a person connected to Prince Andrew that Buckingham Palace was infuriated by Prince Andrew's long-time connection to him, the source revealed. Jeffrey became paranoid that the palace would kill him. He always believed Prince Philip and the British royal family were behind Princess Diana's death. He told people close to him weeks before he died that he would be the next to be murdered by the royals. He said during the many years he was close to Prince Andrew, he learned the palace had a long history of carrying out extrajudicial killings. The former friend of Epstein said Epstein was more worried about Fergie than Andrew. Jeffrey said Fergie used to tell him about other people's secrets. He said most likely she would not hesitate to tell his. He had lost both complete trust in Fergie and Andrew and wanted them out of the picture forever. Brittany, another extraordinary twist in this ongoing crisis.
It's an interesting one, I will say. I'm not sure I totally buy it. I like a lot of Andrew's reporting, but I'm just not totally sure about this story because it seems just a little too fantastic in many ways. But I think Jeffrey definitely did have, of course, many reasons to be worried about what perhaps Andrew and Sarah will share. But at the same time, anything they shared would have not only implicated Jeffrey, but implicated themselves as well. So I'm not totally familiar with this time frame in Epstein's life as they were probably gearing up for trial, what maybe they could have revealed or what pressures were being put under people. But at the same time, it would have been interesting. I think what Epstein could have done, which would have been even more damaging, is if he had any information rolling on Andrew or Sarah themselves and sharing things that and publicly embarrassing them would have probably done much more damage in a lot of ways to the Yorks or the former Yorks than an assassination. But it's an interesting theory, interesting source, but I'm not sure I totally buy it.
Fascinating stuff. Now, speaking of fascinating, Meghan, Harry, and the psychic, the celebrity astrologer. What is really going on? Brittany has very strong views on this. Very, very strong views on this. So we're going to talk about it much, much more over on Substack as our Royal Uncancelled After Show continues. You can join us there at www.outspoken.live. Paid monthly and annual subscribers to the Outspoken After Show get first access every single weekday. And you can watch either live or on demand with no advertising whatsoever. Let me just repeat that address, www.outspoken.live. Of course, there is an option to subscribe completely for free as well, because we are a growing free speech platform over on Substack. It is the best way to support what I do on Outspoken. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.